Okay, welcome back to the Roadmap to Retirement podcast. I'm Alex Neary. Today I'm joined by Jamie Hopkins.
This is Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neary, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement.
Jamie, as I was telling you before we started recording here, I've known about you for a long time. I did one of these designations hanging behind me here, the RICP designation through the American College. And when I did that, you were the guy on the computer screen giving the video lectures. So I've known who you were, enjoyed that, and really excited to have you on today. I'm going to let you do your own introduction because I think based on me stalking your LinkedIn profile, you've got 5 active roles right now, and you have more letters after your name than I do, which is something.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Tell the people who you are.
Yeah, Alex, great to see you. Thanks for having me on the show. And just for anybody who doesn't know the RICP, a great program, retirement income certified professional. And my view, as you mentioned, so I've got a lot of designations, a lot of degrees. I think it's one of the most practical ones out there for helping clients and just learning more about a deep dive into the income space. Not part of the program anymore, but just near and dear to my heart. Yeah, you're right. I've got a lot of roles, and actually I probably should look at my LinkedIn. I while I do post on LinkedIn a lot, I don't pay attention to my profile very often, but 5 sounds about right. I do a handful of different things out there. My day job is I'm Chief Wealth Officer at Bryn Mawr Trust and WISFIS, and then I sit as CEO of our wealth management aspect there too. Love that. That's really what I work with, about 400 professionals. We're really in the trust space of the financial world. So we help out advisors who are looking to set up trusts and need a corporate trustee. We come in and do that on a national charter, a Delaware charter, and we do Nevada also. So we work with hundreds and hundreds of different family offices, advisors, RIAs, and helping serve their clients. So it's been super fun, a little bit of a shift for me here in the last 2 years into leading that team, but love it. Really ties into a lot of my background. I was an attorney by trade, ran my own consulting firm, an estate planning firm, taught at American College for about 7 years, have continued to teach at different universities, taught at Villanova for a little bit, then Creighton, which I'm sure is one of the 5 that's on my LinkedIn. So I don't really do much there anymore. It's a fantastic school, really great financial planning programs. And Dr. Brad Klontz runs a behavioral program there, a master's, that if you're interested in that, really good to look at. Then last thing I'll say, or last 2 things about my background, I run a nonprofit still as president and chairman of the board called FinServe Foundation. We work with about 40 universities, colleges, about 600 students right now are in the fellowship program, really designed at keeping more young professionals in this business, letting them thrive. So we do coaching, mentorship, and bring them out to conferences. And everybody's a volunteer, so we live off of donations, and that's the hardest part, really, honestly, about running a nonprofit is fundraising. So we're always in that fundraising cycle there to keep it going, but love it. And then father of 3, husband to my wife, Kathy, and then I have my dog, Baxter. So that's the family too.
All right. That's a lot. Let's talk about the dog first. What kind of dog is Baxter?
Yeah, Baxter's a Labradoodle. And actually, wherever my phone is here, he is the cover of my phone. Everybody's got different things. That kind of tells you where he sits in my view on the family side. But
there he is.
Pretty blurry. It's Baxter's the cover. He's wonderful. Yeah, it doesn't shed. That was like one of my big requirements. I'm not in a suit today. I do have one hanging up here. I'm going to put it on a little bit later for a meeting, but that was like my big thing. I was like, I want a dog. I don't want to be like lint rolling stuff off a suit every day. Yeah,
we live in different worlds. So I've got a 7, almost 8-month-old golden retriever puppy. And like that first few months of having him, the shedding is not bad. You're like, I don't know what everyone's complaining about. And then something happens around like the 6-month mark where it's insane. Like we don't let him on the furniture at all. So he's not allowed on the couch, but still he's on the couch and it's still covered in fur somehow. So we bought a couple new vacuum cleaners and we're going to be good.
Yeah, you just need like one for each room. It's not that bad.
Yeah, it's one vacuum. I got the robot vacuum too. You push the button or you push the thing on your phone and it does it while you're gone, which seems like a great idea, but it can't keep up either. Cool. Baxter seems like a good boy.
Yeah, golden retrievers are great dogs, though. They really are one of the best. I love them. And but yeah, to that point, their hair is everywhere.
Yeah, it's awesome. We love them, but it's been work and it's been a lot of shedding. I won't go back to what you're talking about your program. That's basically an advocacy for helping young people stay in the career, it sounds like. And that's something that I've become passionate about. I don't know when the switch happened. So I'm 33 years old. I've been in the business since I was 22. I interned before that, and I always thought of myself as a younger advisor. And then something's
Yeah.
happened recently where all of a sudden on LinkedIn and other platforms, I've got all these people that are 22 to 25 reaching out to me all of a sudden asking for career advice or asking for to
Oh,
bounce
yeah.
their ideas off someone, which I'm more than happy to do. I take a lot of time to do that. I don't know when the switch happened. It's weird to be on the other side of it, but all that being said, what is like your number one piece of advice for someone that's fresh out of college, they want to be a financial advisor, and they're going through that struggle that we all go through at some point?
Yeah, it's a great question. It definitely changes for me over time. I've probably been asked this 100 times. I've probably given 60 different answers, not 100 different answers, but one of the ones I noticed lately, so I'm just going to go to that, is the newest generation of people coming out of college, the last, say, 5 years. A lot of them do not have the sales mentality that is needed to thrive in this business. And that's what I worry about the most with that particular group, is whether you want to be a financial planner or wherever you want to sit in this value chain of advice. You do have to have a sales mentality in some shape or another. That doesn't mean it has to be sales in the sense of going and knocking on doors, but is it that you're going to bring people together around your passion, and you love reading books and you're going to start book clubs, but you do have to find a way to bring people together so that's your networking community. And to me, as long as you have that piece, you can sell and bring in business, but that's still crucial to our world. Like, our world is driven by finding people who want to work with you, and there's a lot of options out there. So unless you're pushing on that button and learning about it, like, it's going to be a hard career for you if you just really want to shy away from that completely. So that's been one of the things I've really been focused on, is trying to get more exposure and like different ways to that sales word. I think it's fallen out of vogue, but it's building communities, networking. It's all those aspects that have not fallen out of vogue that are important to train up. The last piece of advice I will say, though, around this is I also tell people, like, this is the best time I've ever seen in the history of this profession to be in this profession. When you look out over the next decade, I just see just so much growth in this space. And if you can thrive and be in here, I don't even think you need to be like the top 1% of people. Just be in this space and make it the next decade. It's going to be phenomenal. There's more wealth in the world than at any point in human history. There's more complexity around it than at any point in human history. And the speed of change, which this has been true for 30 years, but the speed of change for humanity is the fastest it's ever been right now. And so if you can come in as a new person, the knowing what worked in 1995 is irrelevant today, right? Like, you need to know what's going to work tomorrow. But back in 85 and 95, that historical knowledge was more important. Today, that relevant experience is more important than ever before. So I think for young people, learn the new things, learn the AI, learn the new technology, and you can be like the go-to expert super quickly in your career.
That's interesting. I think one of the things that shifted too is you mentioned people coming out of school with less of that sales mentality. But I also think, to the university's credit, they do a way better job of preparing students for a career in financial planning.
Oh, yeah.
And I was on the edge of that. So when I went to Mercyhurst University, which is in Erie, Pennsylvania, and they had an accredited CFP program. So I got to go through that, and I came out with the prerequisites to sit for the CFP exam, which at the time when I was like 19, 20, making a decision, I had no idea what that meant or how it would help me.
Yeah.
But by the time I was taking the exam, I was grateful I did it that way. So it's cool to see that the colleges are preparing people for financial planning, because I think somebody coming out in 2025 knows way more about financial planning than somebody that graduated 10, 20 years before them. So it's striking that balance of having them have that
Yeah.
sales mentality paired with the financial planning knowledge is also very crucial.
Yeah, that's 100% true. That financial planning knowledge coming out of schools now is really elevated. You go back to, I'm almost 10 years older than you, so you go back to my time period, there were hardly any CFP programs at the college level, right? They didn't really exist. There were a couple, but very few. We might have had a dozen then. And those have really spread. The number of students in them have grown substantially, and they come out pretty well versed in the industry from that planning and advice type of knowledge. So that's huge. And now it's, our job to keep them in this industry, invest in them, and hope that they thrive moving forward.
Yeah, I get a lot of conversations too, and I don't want to spend all day talking about this, but there's more information out there. So the 22-year-old graduates from college and they Google all the firms they're interviewing at, and they find all the negative stuff about the firms, and there's a ton of that out there. But
Yeah.
they almost just get into this. They're paralyzed by just like the fear of making the wrong decision. And the reality is, their success comes down to more who they are as a person and who they choose as a mentor than it does whatever the name on the door is for the firm they're affiliating with. But I think it's almost just put the blinders on, go out there, do great work for your clients, attract more clients, and then maybe 5, 10 years into your career, you can then be really selective about the firm that you pair with.
Yeah. The other thing that changed along that line too is sometimes people give advice as if it is 1992 again, or even 2000, where there's this expectation you were going to spend a career with a firm. People are moving now across the board, not just millennials and younger generations, but across the board. 5 to 7 years is like the turnover time now. It's just changed, right? The way that the workforce mobilizes today is different than it's been before. So to that point, if you quote unquote make the wrong decision, don't love the first place you're at, it's okay nowadays. I do give people this advice too, though. I hire a lot of people. What I don't like to see is somebody who's jumped every 2 to 3 years over and over again. But at that 7 year mark, like that story feels totally different now. And that's what people are looking for: different experiences, moving, that desire to build something. The jumping every 18 months can be still seen as a negative, though. So you do want to stick things out, find the best. If it's a really bad situation, leave. But otherwise, eventually, I think that jumping every 18 months does, employers do look at that with a little bit of a hesitation. So just be aware of that as you're entering out there too.
Yeah, that probably wears on your clients too if you're changing firms every. So they don't like
Yeah.
that DocuSign over and over again.
No, you do not want to do transitions like every 18 months with clients. Eventually, they just stop coming. And I've seen
Yeah,
that from advisors that have tried to hop and go to the next paycheck. And honestly, their books dwindled down. They don't grow the same. They've depleted their network. Their greatest advocates for them disappear. It's really hard to do that.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Sort of shifting focus. So if we're talking to, I feel like the first part of our conversation is aimed at the advisor. If we shift focus to talking to more of the end client that's not in our industry, but they're looking to work with an advisor, there's also a lot of noise in that space. And one of the things that I believe in, and I get the impression you do too, is designations. What designations do you think are, I don't want to say which ones are the best ones, because you probably
Yeah.
can't say that, but look at all these letters after people's names. How do you start to decipher that? And what does a client want to do with that information?
I'll give you my best, or the ones I like best, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Like,
I hope I got the right ones. I got
yeah,
3 of them. Let's see how I
what's
did.
best, right? But no, I really don't shy away from that, right? I've been a professor now for 17 years. I'm happy to talk about education and continued learning. So the way that I look at it is this: I think that in the financial advice space and financial planning, CFP is core to what we do. I think if you've graduated from a 4 year college, you're in this space, you should get your CFP. I think that for people looking for advisors, I think that's a great one to ask for. Now, does that mean every advisor needs a CFP? Absolutely not. I do think, though, when you're a client looking for somebody, I would like to know that there's a CFP on the team at least. Your main advisor does not have to be a CFP. Actually, a functional way to run a team is to have a CFP that's doing a lot of the planning. But I think that's worthwhile to ask. I'm a big fan of RICP. There's another one out there, RMA, that's a similar designation in the retirement income space. But I think if you're going to hire somebody to help guide you through retirement, they should have specific knowledge in retirement income planning. I've
Two
used
for
this
two
in
so
now.
far. I just want
Yeah,
to,
that's good. Yeah. And so, like, when I look at that one, my statement was always, look, I wouldn't hire a surgeon, right, to do an operation on me that didn't go to medical school, right? I just wouldn't. Same thing. I wouldn't hire a lawyer to represent me in court that didn't have some training in litigation. I feel the same about retirement income planning. It's a surgical approach to your financial planning portion, right? Where you have to dissect it in a different way. So you should, if you're going to say, hey, I want help with this income portion of my retirement, you should look at somebody who's devoted their knowledge to it. I don't know what your third one is. I could guess the first two, but Those are the two big ones I typically talk about. But look, if you looking for somebody in the life insurance world, I'll mention this one. CLU is a good insurance-based one. It's been the historical long-term running one. There's some good exit planning designations for people looking for business owners, and you want to help structure how you should fund things, what taxes you should pay ahead of time. And then the other one I really like is charitable giving. There's one called CAP, which is really one about philanthropy and best strategies for giving. That one's interesting if you're in that space. It's not the be all and end all, but for some people, if that's really important to your plan, having somebody around that knows the insides and out of foundations and charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trusts, any of those types of strategy, charitable gift annuities, which aren't used very much, but can be a really powerful planning tool. That shows the specialization there. And then two comments before I wrap up here with these. So the first thing is designations do not mean somebody is a good advisor. That's always important to say. You can have great advisors, don't have designations. What designations show to me is that the person committed themselves to their profession. That is the single main thing it shows, is that, hey, I showed a level of commitment to what I do and care factor. So that's how I've looked at it. I am a big fan of continued education. Our space continues to change, so we have to do CE. We should keep learning and pushing ourselves, because otherwise our planning and advice will fall behind what our clients need.
I love that answer. I like everything from the designations don't make you a good advisor, and there are good advisors that don't have the designations. I selfishly like that you started with two designations that I do have, and I didn't pay you to say that, so let's keep that on the forefront. The other one I did is the CHFC, and that's really just an add-on to the CFP.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if I should say this on a recording. I was disappointed in that designation. I did it, I think, for the right reasons. I looked at the content of the two courses that I need to take, and I thought it would. And then I probably shouldn't say this, but I pretty much didn't study and took the exam, and it was fine.
So I will give you a different perspective of that one. A lot of people end up with it the way that you did, is they took the material for the CFP, then took that. So the CHFC actually predated the CFP.
Okay.
And so at one point it was just its own standalone. It covers actually 100% of the material that's covered in the CFP, plus a tiny little bit extra. Honestly, I would argue today they're fairly similar programs. The main difference is really just the CHFC does not require the 4-year college degree. So 2-year college degree people can go sit for that one. And it doesn't have that like massive cumulative exam at the end. Some of the kind of fiduciary requirements post about sales of product rules are a little bit different. So it is, from an education standpoint, the same program with kind of different restrictions on how to hold it. So where I actually felt historically it fit in the market was the fact there's lots of people doing 2-year programs today, and it allows them to get a similar degree in education, whereas the CFP says, hey, you need that 4-year program. And I think looking forward into the future, I think CFP is going to have to review that. I think there's a lot of pressure on traditional college education right now. And like, where does the CFP sit inside of this changing education ecosystem is an important conversation.
Yeah, to me, the 4-year degree is not really relevant. I would argue that if you can learn the material and pass the exam and be a good financial planner, I don't really need you to pay a university for 4 years.
No.
But that's not always a popular opinion. And people say things like what you mentioned before. If you're getting surgery, you want a surgeon that went to medical school. Maybe we need to take education serious in that way.
Yeah, like I actually view it like this. If you go to Texas Tech, I'll use them as a great example. They're one of the largest financial planning programs out there. You do your 2 years of general stuff, then your last 2 years are really your CFP curriculum. In essence, you did a 2-year program plus the CFP. That's what you did. If you went to a 2-year program and then did the CFP afterwards, that's essentially the 4-year college experience wrapped into one. So I actually think that should be like that add-on to the generalist aspect. I think it's actually a really great way to go. We had approached some community college about that notion back at American College when I was there. It never really took off, but I still think that's a really good approach to this kind of long-term educational change that we're going to see.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good solution. I think as it stands right now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no specific curriculum you need to take. You just need a 4-year degree. So I could have a 4-year degree in music or something, and they still let me sit for the CFP, but someone with a 2-year degree in finance can't. So that's an interesting thing. The other
Yeah.
one that I was looking at, I think it's a newer one from the American College. I don't know what the letters are, but there's like a tax planning one that came
Yeah,
out
the tax
recently.
one. Yeah. I don't know much about it except Ed Slott and Jeff built it. They're both fantastic people, right? Jeff's a good friend of mine, and we catch up fairly regularly. So I'm sure it's a good program. I have a master's in taxation LLM from a law school, so I'm actually not going to go take a designation program in that. Just not a great use of my time. But I think taxes is one of the big areas of the world moving forward. It's already been incorporated a bit, but that's been my big like talking point this last couple years is the next big wave of financial service innovation the next 3 years will actually be this integration of what I'll say satellite offerings into the advisory practice. CFP taught it right, central point advisor, insurance, investment management, estate planning, tax planning, business exit planning, all these different services here, banking services, trust services around this central point. What is going to happen and starting to happen is those are going to be more integrated into the advisory offering than ever before. Tax is probably the one that's investment management and tax have probably come in the fastest. We've got good tax software solutions out there. And then you see the education following it. I do think the estate plan one and trust services, that's this next wave. Wealth.com, I'm an investor in there. Vanilla, Encore, and Trust and Will are four big services that have popped up into the space. Trust and Will ran Super Bowl ad last year. So that's how it's a real thing in our, yeah, but those are coming next. So I wouldn't be shocked to see a different version of estate planning education. There's the AEP, which is an estate planning one out there. But I wouldn't be shocked if we see a variation of that in the next year or two. I think eventually banking services will wrap in. I think that that's been something that's really been set to the side of the advisory world for a while in the sense of RIAs. But it's one of, if you look at what clients are saying they want, the trust, the tax, and the banking services wrapped into the relationship are three of the biggest areas that clients are saying they want that they're not receiving from advisors today.
Right. Yeah, I think the tax planning it's one that I've leaned into personally. I do tax planning seminars, and I really the nerd in me likes that topic, so I spend a lot of time focused on it and learning about it. So I saw the designation come out. I was like, oh, that might be something that makes sense to add some credibility and whatnot. But I do think this kind of future financial planning has to be, it might be the financial planner, might be somebody else, but they're the quarterback of the team. And then you're really bringing in the other professionals to do all of these things. Because I think that there's not enough value in the wealth management process itself or the portfolio management. It's become such a commodity in today's world where investors can go out to these free online platforms and they can find their 60/40 mutual fund and plug into it and they're happy. And it's
Yeah,
hard to show much alpha.
that part's definitely true. If you look at the alpha, beta, now gamma study that's out there, really just push that same thing. Morningstar had that, and then Vanguard has their advisor alpha piece too. And you look at those two things, and really what they have shown is advisors can't add much value in the investment management overall. Where you can add value, right? Tax planning, withdrawal strategies, allocation, you actually can add a little bit of value there. And then there's that wrapper around the behavioral side. I think when you talk to individuals, the behavioral side is probably not the right way to kind of term it. It's really just helping people make more informed decisions, right? That is really the main job. So that's through education, through demonstration, through systems, right? Sometimes through structure. A lot of times we help people make good decisions by having a solid structure where the investments are within a framework. So then people don't mess with it as much because that's your job. That's some of the framework and value add that you are bringing.
Yeah, it's talking them out of or being the gatekeeper to them making a bad decision. And we all have examples of people that whatever they called us during COVID and they said, I want to sell everything. And they were at the bottom. And then sure enough, we see things recover or 100 stories just like that of just trying to get people out of their own way to stay the course.
Yeah.
And that's how you really deliver a lot of value on the investment side. Jamie, we're getting towards the end of our time here. I know you got to run. Anything else you want to make sure we get in today before we cut off?
We talked about taxes and income planning, and then I mentioned the estate part. So we'll go through that because really it's this early career and whoever you are, you get started, you start saving. Eventually you decide that you want this advice, you get it, you get to retirement and you start taking distributions and the tax planning around that's huge. And then the last part is how do we deal with this end of life issue? I still think that one needs more focus. We tend to be in the United States more of a death denying society than a death appreciation society. You go to some other countries and they actually celebrate, right? Funerals are more of a celebration of like celebrations. Here we're more like, right, black veil, sad, crying, and we mourn life more than celebrate it. So we actually avoid these conversations a lot. It's only like 20%, 20 to 30% of Americans really have kind of anything that I would say resembles an estate plan in place. And then a little bit of my research shows it's probably about 12 to 15% of Americans probably have actually up to date estate plans in place. So the vast majority of people aren't up to speed on their estate plan. And that can be as simple as things like digital assets, all your emails and online accounts. How is that taken care of? Are the beneficiary designations set up right on your different retirement accounts? So I would just say, if you're listening to this and you don't feel 100% there, talk to your advisor or whoever else it is that you go to for this kind of trusted advice, and work on that, because it's not so much about you. It's actually about your loved ones. Like having an up-to-date estate plan in place, right? It's not about you. It's not about your money. It's about taking care of your loved ones. So if you have those people that you love in your life, think about doing that work for them, not for you. And I think that's a little bit of a mental change, because most of the time when we're thinking about our planning, it's about, hey, what is that doing for my future? This is about somebody else's future. Do that work, right? It's important. And my story started when my dad passed away when I was 8 years old. And that set a lot of this stuff in motion for me. You don't know when you're 8 years old, when your dad passes away, but I see that struggle of when you don't have the right plans in place and the complexity and scarcity that leaves behind for your kids, your loved ones, your spouse, if something were to happen to you. That's one of the pieces of advice I have here to close out. And it wraps us full circle from start of career, retirement, tax planning, all the way to the estate side.
Yeah, absolutely. The states, it's often overlooked. And I think it's a little bit of what you're saying, this denial that we're never going to die. And it's something as an advisor I bring up every 6 months when I'm doing review meetings with clients. It's, do you have a will in place? And they say, oh yeah, I got to do that. I got to do that. Then 6 months later, we meet again. It's like, hey, last time you told me you really need to get a will in place. Have you taken care of that? Oh no, I haven't. And then I'm always introducing them to local estate planning attorneys that can help them. And it just gets procrastinated. And I think to give yourself the peace of mind and know that in that God forbid scenario, if or when it happens, you've got everything buttoned up and your family can have a little bit of an easier time is important.
Yeah. And that's what I'd say next time you run into one of those. I would ask that question, like, who is this estate plan for? Is it for you? Is it for somebody else? And sometimes we're more actually willing to act when it's for our kids or our grandkids than we are for ourselves.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely true. Same thing with life insurance. We can go on a whole tangent about
Oh,
that
yeah.
also, but we got to cut it off somewhere. So, Jamie, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. And I'll look forward to connecting in the future.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, we did.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of Alexander Neri. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by Alexander Neri or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. Alexander Neri and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.